Coffee pricing is pretty painful right now. In the coffee industry, there's a whole lot of people saying that the price for a cup of coffee is too low. They say the cost of wages, rent, and ingredients continue to rise, and menu prices haven't kept up with costs. But if you ask customers, they'll probably tell you that a cup of coffee already costs too much and they can't afford to pay more. So something's got to give. As a cafe owner, how do you work out how much to charge for a cup of coffee? Finding the ideal price depends on understanding three factors: your costs, competitors' pricing, and customer perception. Let's go through all three of these, starting with your costs. Now, for a number of years, I worked with a coffee industry veteran called Julian. Before he retired, I was asking him about the old days, and he dug into his files and pulled out this menu from a cafe in Sydney from 1982. Now, if you look past the intriguing ploughman's lunch and the spelling of espresso, you'll notice that they were selling a cappuccino for $1. Now, if we fast forward to today, that same cappuccino might set you back around $5 in Sydney. So that works out to an average annual increase of 3.9% over the last 42 years. Now, to put that in perspective, maintaining this rate means that a cappuccino's price would need to rise by at least 20 cents a year in today's money. So the point of me telling you this is that price increases are nothing new. Every business has to manage them. The smart ones accept that and make small, regular adjustments to their prices to stay profitable. Now, of course, costs don't rise in neat, predictable patterns. Some years, like the last couple, inflation hits us harder than others. And that's where you need to compare the actual costs and margins of your menu items before and after price hikes. So I've covered this in more detail in a previous video, but let's quickly recap. So consider a typical takeaway flat white in a 12-ounce cup, priced at $5. To break down the costs and margin, we first need to deduct tax. Now in Australia, GST is 10%, so once we remove that, we're left with $4.55, which is the real price we need to work with to calculate profit. Next are the ingredient costs: coffee, milk, paper cup and the lid. These are called cost of goods, or COGS. COGS are the direct costs associated with producing your product, and they don't include things like wages, rent, or your Spotify subscription. Only the costs that directly relate to the product. So in this example, COGS adds up to $1.24, which leaves us with $3.31 in what's known as gross profit. Now the other expenses like rent, labour and utilities, they're shared across all the products you sell. Now we manage these as part of the overall profit and loss statement. But for a single product like this, the calculation to work out how much we need to increase price to cover our ingredients costs is pretty simple. In a spreadsheet, we have a simple table showing the COGS and the gross profit. Each time costs increase, we can copy this, update the individual costs, and then adjust the price to see how much of an increase we need to maintain gross profit. Now there's plenty of systems out there that can help you with this, but I've linked to a simple spreadsheet down below that you can use to calculate this. And it's a simple thing, but this calculation is an important step to make sure your margins don't get eroded over time. Now if we lived in a world of logical robots, then perhaps this is all we would need to do. But because we're dealing with humans, we need to factor in more than just cost. Our next stop is competition. Now, like it or not, customers' expectations of price are often shaped by what other cafes in the area are charging. Now, that doesn't mean you should just go and match their prices, especially when everyone else is waiting for everybody else to increase prices. But you should at least be aware of competitors' pricing when making decisions on where to set your prices. Now, in my experience, the best way to gather intel is just to visit your competitors in person and see firsthand what they're offering. Now, aside from noting their prices, it's also an opportunity to experience their atmosphere, the menu, and the service. They're all helpful insights to help you understand how customers perceive value. Now, it's worth pointing out that your main competitor often isn't who you think it is. For many people, the real alternative is not the coffee shop down the road, but their home kitchen or the coffee machine at the office. Now, this is particularly true of convenience customers. They're grabbing a quick takeaway coffee from you in the morning because it's quick and easy. But there comes a tipping point. When budgets are tight, they start cutting back, maybe coming in less often or opting for smaller sizes. And of course, there's no way you can compete with the cost of making coffee at home or the free coffee they can get at the office. But that's not why they were coming to you in the first place. It's about more than just the physical product. And for that, we need to understand how customers perceive value. So customers have a variety of reasons for visiting a coffee shop. For some, it's a good venue to meet friends. For others, it's a little treat while they're doing the shopping. And for others, it's a quick caffeine hit during their break at work. Now, these are what we call occasions. Each of these occasions has a value to the customer that's over and above the raw cost of the product they're buying. Now, what this extra intangible value is worth is really important to our pricing strategy. If we don't factor this perceived value into our pricing, then the difference in profit can be dramatic. Think about it like this. Imagine walking into a 5-star hotel with its marble pillars, spacious design, and impeccably dressed staff. You'd naturally expect to pay a premium for the experience. But if you're celebrating something big, then you might be happy to pay it. And if the experience was good, you might even say it was worth every cent. Now, on the flip side, think about the vibe of a cozy caravan park by the highway. It costs a fraction of the price of the fancy hotel, but you expect to pay less. And if the air conditioner didn't work, you might say it was a rip-off. Now, the same principle applies to cafes. Elements like design, location, service, and the coffee style all shape what customers expect to pay. They're not going to say it directly, but customers are generally willing to pay more when the overall experience and the quality of what you provide aligns with their expectations. Now, at this point, it's important to point out not everyone will be happy to pay more when you increase prices, but that's okay. The goal is not to keep every customer. The goal is not even to sell more coffee. The goal is to make profit. Profit is the point of what you're doing, not revenue or transactions. Profit is what makes a business sustainable, and it's the return on all your hard work. So it might seem counterintuitive, but it's generally more profitable to increase prices and lose a few customers than to hold prices in an attempt to keep everyone happy. The ultimate goal is to find the spot where you deliver an experience that's just right for your target customers, where they appreciate the value of what you're offering and you're able to charge prices that match. If you want to find out more about what makes a cafe profitable, then watch this video next where I explain 5 practical ways to improve cafe profit. I'll see you then.